Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of RSO, the podcast of the Olympia chapter of the DSA. I'm Isaac Wagnitz. We're joined today by Jenny Ballantyne and Colton Rose, a rank-and-file member and a staff organizer, respectively, with United Food and Commercial Workers Local 367. Longtime listeners may remember the couple of times that Michael Hines, the president of UFCW 367, was on the show to talk about what the union was up to in those days. These two are here today to talk with us about Proposition 1, also known as the Workers' Bill of Rights, which will be on the ballot for Olympia voters this November. Jenny and Colton, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, glad to have you here. So Prop 1 has been one of the central things that labor has been fighting for here in the South Sound in recent months. It's also been one of our DSA chapter's major projects on the electoral front. But for folks who may be new to local politics or just new to the area, can you tell us about what exactly Prop 1 would do at the policy level?
Well, wages that are closer to a living wage. Large businesses, 500 plus employees, would be paying $20 an hour immediately, and then raise a year after with inflation. Medium businesses, 15 to 499, they're 18 hours with an increase of $1 a year until it's like a 3-year phase-in, basically. And then the smaller businesses that are under 15 employees, they start at $17 an hour, and the gap will change with that and will as well. That's got a 6-year phase-in. We also want predictable scheduling, supporting our family, provide schedules 2 weeks in advance, fair compensation for, when they have to call you in or they cancel your shifts. I'm talking to restaurants. The right to decline extra hours on short notice and clear estimate of weekly hours so people can actually count on what they're going to get. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're unreasonable. The safe workplaces through training and adequate staffing prioritize safety of workers and customers by mandating sufficient staffing levels to reduce the risks of injuries and violence, as well as enhanced safety training and emergency preparedness.
Awesome. Yeah, that's all sounds like good stuff. And quite a lot of organizations have come out in support of this measure. It's an impressive list, as have a number of current and former elected officials. So who are they all, or at least some of the major ones?
Wow, it'd be quite an achievement if I could remember all the endorsing organizations off the top of my head. But some of the major, big supporters are you guys, Olympia DSA. There's Thurston, Lewis, Mason County's Central Labor Council. Have been fully backing this from the beginning. There's the Thurston Climate Action Team. They've been really strong supporters. And there's Washington Community Action Network. And so many, way too many for me to name off on my head, but that's just a handful of the really strong supporters that are at the top of my mind.
Yeah, there's a full list of them on the website, by the way, which is olyrising.com. We will remind you about that one later, and it will be in the show notes. So UFCW 367 has really been if not the main driving force behind this initiative, as they were a while back for a set of tenant protections that was eventually passed in Olympia. Now, these aren't the kind of campaigns that labor unions would, historically normally start in this country, but it's happening more and more. How do Prop 1 and, the previous tenants' rights campaign really, fit into 367 strategy, and why would and should unions engage in these kind of efforts?
Yeah. 367 isn't just a union that collects dues and sits on their hands. 367 is made up of real workers that come from the actual stores they protect. And we recently had open bargaining with the bargaining team being the actual workers instead of representatives that only work for the union. No shade to the reps because they are amazing. But the corporate lawyers were visibly uncomfortable looking at the actual workers in their faces at bargaining And I believe it helped us negotiate a better deal. We understand that it's not just about us, it's about the whole community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to reemphasize a bit of what Jenny said there about 367 being member-driven. Over half of the union staff were rank and file members that came out as spurs or special project union reps to work kind of what's like an apprenticeship program with the local, and from there moved into permanent staff position. I myself was a 10-year member working at Water Fred Meyer with you, I think.
Yeah, good old 659.
That's right. But yeah, 365, a lot of unions really focus on their members at work and only at work, and therefore are only concerned with their collective bargaining agreements. But we take a wider view of our members. They are people inside and outside of work. So we organize both inside and outside of work. And that includes doing things like tenant protection and the Workers' Bill of Rights.
Yeah, well, this project was kind of in its initial planning phase one of the times that Mike Hines was on the program, and I think he said it pretty well about, like, you know, you can win a great contract at the bargaining table, but then, you know, if your rent can just get raised to 1,000% overnight, then that, like, accomplishes nothing. So it's like we have to tackle these policy things at the same time that we're fighting for good contracts with the employer.
That's right.
That's exactly right. Well, in our last contract negotiations in 2022, we won the highest raises that this local had ever seen prior to that.
Yeah.
But the company's response was to just cut hours and reduce the amount of people on the floor. And that's why we see this, like, Workers' Bill of Rights, Prop 1, as like, it works in conjunction with the collective bargaining agreement to strengthen everybody.
Right, so they can't just, like, hire more and more part-time people to give, like, 5 hours a week to. Instead, they would have to, like, give people who are already there 40, right? Like, that's one of the aspects of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have to offer hours to existing employees before they can hire externally.
Yeah, excellent stuff. So on the opposition side, there is now an anti-Prop 1 campaign that is billing itself in very sort of Orwellian euphemism as Olympia Together. Who are the major players in that effort, and, like, where is that money coming from?
I mean, it's the typical bad actors that you see in campaigns like this all around the country. It's the local business lobbies. It's the Chamber of Commerce and the Restaurant Owners Association and organizations like that. If you pay any attention to these labor rights or minimum wage campaigns throughout the country, it's the same people you're seeing every time opposing it.
Yeah, I mean, not to engage in too much trash talking, although, what am I saying? I'm not sorry. But I looked at the opposition website, and, like, their list of endorsing businesses even was honestly kind of pitifully short. And the places that, like, the businesses that were, like, on record opposing Prop 1 were ones that just, like, were, you know, they're overpriced and kind of mediocre and cater to a very, like, wealthy demographic. And I just thought that was kind of telling. Is that, like, I'm pretty sure, unless something changed since I last looked at it, like, Prop 1 actually had a longer list of supporting businesses than, like, the people who are against it, which is pretty funny.
I just wanted to say that, in addition to what you're saying about the list of that anti-endorsers, I also found it really funny that their website is full of, like, stock pictures, AI-generated stuff, whereas the Oly Rising website in support of Prop 1 is genuine pictures of actual community members supporting this.
Yeah, theirs is pretty cringe. So yeah, Prop 1 has been through something of an odyssey to get to this point. First off, there was the effort to gather signatures and get it on the ballot in the first place. And then we packed City Council in August to try to get them to pass it directly without going to a general election. That's a feature of state or local law. I didn't actually realize before then that if like an initiative gets enough signatures to make the ballot, like the council just has the option to pass it. However, the Olympia City Council declined to do so by a vote of 4-3. Though this was a setback, in a sense, it was kind of a sign of progress in that historically the council has tried really hard to kind of present this common front of like having consensus on every issue. And this time the divided interests were clear. Like council members Robert Vanderpool, Jim Cooper, and Clark Gilman had the courage to vote for doing what is necessary, what the people of the city clearly want in is common sense, while Mayor Dante Payne and council members Danny Madrone, Yen Huynh, and Kelly Green did not. And frankly, apparently couldn't resist being rather condescending to Olympia voters in the process. They were kept insisting that people didn't really know what they were signing, which I thought was pretty gross. That not being enough, apparently, our opponents on the council now want to pass an anti-Prop 1 resolution, just, I guess, in order to make perfectly clear how much they're not on the side of working people in our city. What can our listeners do to combat this particular latest move by the anti-worker interests? I assume we want to turn a bunch of people out for that city council meeting coming up on October 7th, where they're going to consider that.
Yes, it's very important that people show up and show their support on October 7th. I think that the city council members need to see that we do know what we're talking about and we are smart enough to understand what we're asking for. Increasing poverty creates violence, blame, and dissent. And every denial strengthens stigma from fear and divides us further. And business owners and city council members are not part of the elite. They are not better than their customers or their staff or constituents. And we're all 99%. And they should consider what actually divides us as a community instead of making the working class and the homeless the scapegoats that they are diverting attention from the actual systemic issues they feel uncomfortable looking at. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking them to recalculate. And they turn their nose up based on appearances without knowing that in a New York minute, they could be homeless and without a job. And the ugly things the opponents say are meant to dehumanize us so that they don't have to admit that they are abusing their workers and taking advantage. Putting money back into a business means paying a fair wage. And we need to send a message that Olympia is not a safe place to abuse workers. And I don't want a future that weakens Olympia as a community and creates more poverty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, did you have any thoughts on that one as well, Colton?
What Jenny just said was beautiful. I would just add that on October 7th, we are trying to turn out supporters to show City Council that what they're doing is not in the best interest of the Olympia voter. And we will be meeting at the Timberland Library at 4 o'clock, and then before the meeting starts at 6 o'clock, we're going to walk over together to City Council, just a few blocks from the library, and we're going to sign up for public comment. So I'm not sure when this is airing, but if it airs before October 7th and you're listening, and this is something you would want to participate in, just come down to the downtown library anytime between 4 and 5:30 or so and join us. And if you can't be there, if you can't meet us at the library, still come to the City Council meeting, which starts at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you for the details on that. And yeah, definitely the goal is to have this air before then so that we can help drive a little more turnout. Again, though, like, I can't help editorializing myself here a little bit about this one because, like, obviously this thing needs to be passed for the sake of workers in our city. But, like, so much has been made out of the impact on small businesses And yet, again, that list of like really openly anti-Prop 1 businesses is super short, and it's the same, it's like you said, it's the same list of bad actors who you always see. And it's so strange to me. It's like there's a few of them who've kind of drunk this big business Kool-Aid that you always have to just keep labor costs to a bare minimum all the time, and that they've weirdly gotten like 4 of the 7 city council members to drink that weird Kool-Aid with them. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, especially when like when Olympia, you know, has this image as being super progressive, and I'm sure that these council members would say that like they're totally on the opposite side of the spectrum from, you know, like the federal administration right now, but they're towing that same like anti-worker line that we're seeing from the federal government and that we saw from like the state with the wanting to, you know, cut services and lay people off rather than just tax Amazon and Boeing a little bit or whatever. Anyway, that's my piece on that. Anyway, while we're on the subject of shenanigans, though, folks may or may not know UFCW 367 and the DSA chapter up there are, and a similar kind of coalition, are working to pass a workers' bill of rights in Tacoma as well. And that has faced, shall we say, some interesting challenges. Can you talk briefly, Colton, maybe about what happened up there? Like the city council was doing some shenanigans to try and like keep it off the ballot or whatever.
Yeah, so we sent signatures in on the same day in both cities, in both Olympia and in Tacoma. The Tacoma City Charter is a little different in that in Olympia, City Council had 10 days to review the initiative and then vote to either enact it or send it to the ballot. In Tacoma, they got 30 days. So what they did was they waited that full 30 days to send an initiative to Thurston County, to Pierce County, asking them to put the initiative on the November 2025 ballot. The problem with that is that when they sent that resolution over to the county, it was 3 days after the county's cutoff to submit anything for the November ballot. Initially, what we thought was going to happen was basically all parties were going to say, oops, we missed it, we'll do it in February. But after lawyering up, the city actually told us that it was their opinion that since it missed the cutoff for the November ballot, that just meant the initiative was dead and all those signatures don't count and it's just gone. So we actually ended up having to sue the city and the county to get it onto the February ballot. We were trying to get it onto the November ballot, but the judge determined that the city was not negligent in taking their full 30 days, but that their resolution requesting for a November ballot after the deadline for a November ballot was an illegal resolution. Therefore, it goes on the February ballot. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, it's just shocking. Well, I say shocking, but maybe it like shouldn't shock us, right? That like that's the kind of undemocratic like trickery that some elected officials are willing to do just to like keep something that would help workers from even like getting on the ballot, right? It's just the gall of it is just incredible.
There's a saying that I'm a big fan of: don't attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. And when this all started shaking out, I thought that probably the city council was just being incompetent in missing the deadline. But the city attorney actually told us straight up that they knew when the deadline to submit to the county was, and that they knew that their resolution was going to be rejected.
God.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, speaking of holding people accountable, so if Prop 1 is passed, what sort of penalties would potentially be imposed on employers who violate its requirements? Like, are there any specific measures for enforcement that are included in the language?
Yeah, there's a couple different avenues for enforcement within the bill. The first is a private right of action. So any employee who has their rights violated under the Workers' Bill of Rights has the right to take their employer to civil court and sue for damages. And there's also fee shifting in that to cover attorney fees if it is found that the employer did in fact violate the employee's rights. In addition to the private right of action, is a mechanism for the city to enforce the bill as they see fit. It's pretty loosely defined. It just gives the city the authority to enforce it if they choose to do so, but it is not a requirement. And that was done very intentionally because in other cities that we took inspiration from, like Seattle and San Jose, they're much larger, and they actually have municipal labor boards or departments of labor to enforce labor laws within the city. But Olympia is a small city, and that just doesn't have the capacity for labor departments. So there is authority within the bill for the city to enforce the worker bill if they choose to do so, but there's not a requirement.
I'm with you. So we've talked about, the policy side of things and the political strategy involved in this effort, but, let's hear about what the really tangible benefits of passing Prop 1 will be for working people and families in Olympia. Like, how is this going to raise people's quality of life and improve those material conditions that we love to talk about?
Having predictable schedules that cannot be moved around will help families stay together, have more time, just to get to those sports games and stuff like that, actually having dinners, things where we can count on our family members to be there. Restaurants are known for abusing their staff by overscheduling and then cutting servers. Bigger employers like my grocery store hire too many people for the amount of hours that they actually have available, thus giving us like 15 to 20 hours a week. I work with people who have been loyal employees for over 25 years and still can't count on 32 hours a week. One business's employee is another business's customer. And if the shop down the street pays a living wage, then the employee can afford to go out to dinner at the restaurant down the street. Safety is a big issue at my store due to shoplifting and untreated mentally ill, unhoused people desperate for resources. And those are all issues that are really important. And on the policy side, those things need to be looked at, and I think that it would help us all.
Definitely. So building from that, like, how do you all see that Prop 1 will help strengthen the local economy overall?
These measures help strengthen the whole community so that we can focus on more difficult issues that need our attention. Like working class people should make enough so that we're not needing to utilize things like food banks and homeless shelters. People who want to see a cleaner, healthier Olympia need to understand that if Olympia isn't part of the solution, Olympia will be the problem. Everyone needs to pitch in.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting how there's this kind of belief about that. Yeah, like if you have to pay a living wage, it'll destroy these businesses. But it's like if nobody has any discretionary income, then local businesses will die because everyone will just, shop at Walmart for everything and be eating out of cans for every meal. Yeah.
Yeah. They think they're serving or catering to the elite, and that's it. But, regular people, you need to be able to serve to them too.
The wage increase takes place immediately for like big businesses, but not for smaller ones. So like immediately that creates a competitive advantage. And also it's like, imagine if everybody who like works at the mall or at Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever, like had enough money to like go downtown and, spend money there. It would actually like help. I genuinely struggle with why there's this particular small subset of the local business owners who like don't get that. It's a conundrum, I guess, but maybe it's just ideology.
I see it as like people that run their own business or own their own business. Sometimes it's because they didn't work well with others in the other job situations that they were in. So they're like, well, I'll just run my own business. Now, working for like certain restaurant owners and things like that, I've been treated quite badly. And I thought, well, gosh, the only way you can get away with acting like this is because you own that business. And I got to think that they're fighting it because they don't want someone to tell them that they can, say, oh, well, if you don't like it, quit,
Yeah, for sure. You were adding something, though, too, Colton?
Yeah, just going back to what you were saying, Isaac, about, if a normal wage worker can go downtown and spend money at a local business, like, it strengthens the local economy. And that is the argument, but it's not just a hypothesis. It's not just theoretical. Like, we've seen it in practice. This is a new thing. Minimum wage initiatives have been passing around the state, throughout the country for a decade. And at this point, we've seen the impact. And in Seattle, when they implemented their minimum wage increase, 12 years ago or something like that, 99% of small businesses survived the minimum wage increase just fine and experienced increased sales from wage workers being able to go to their businesses and spend their time and money there. This isn't some pie in the sky, like we hope it'll work out. We've seen it work out. And I don't understand why people are blind to that.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, these facts about it actually being good for the economy are probably, like, pretty self-evident to folks like us. But, of course, our opponents are going to be trying every possible argument, no matter how faulty and bad faith it is, to convince regular people that passing Prop 1 would somehow be a bad thing. What are some of the common talking points that we've seen employed against Prop 1? Like, why are they false, and how can we effectively counter them when we're talking to, neighbors, friends, and family?
All right. The biggest one, the one I hear most often from, like, your normal person who's not a business owner is it'll cause inflation. My response to that has been, and it's been pretty successful, that, like, the inflation has already happened. It's happening. It's been happening for years. And the wages aren't going up with the inflation. We're just trying to keep up with it. So it's not the increase in minimum wage that's causing inflation. It is supply chain issues, and it's stock buyback and all sorts of other things. We're just trying to make sure that the people at the bottom making minimum wage can afford to live in the communities where they work. Okay, so one that I've been hearing from the anti-campaign is Initiative 1 or Prop 1 is poorly written and confusing. I think that's just a talking point that, like, your normal everyday person doesn't have time to actually go through and read the whole thing. But if they decided to, it's actually pretty easily understandable. It's pretty, like, a normal person can interpret it. And so I think that's just one that the anti-campaign are banking that your normal person isn't going to put in the effort to actually track down the text of Prop 1 and read it. I wrote the first draft of the thing, but that's the first draft is what we ended up with. We hired an attorney who works on these minimum wage propositions and initiatives throughout the state. He worked on it in Burien and CTAC and many more. So what I'm saying is that we had an expert write the final draft. It is well written, and it is easily understandable for a normal person. Are there any talking points that you guys have heard?
Not like beyond that, really. I mean, yeah, like we've heard variations on the, if we have to raise wages, then we'll have to raise prices on everybody. But it's like with the inflation thing, it's like that you were already doing that, like what? Yeah, it's a little bit disingenuous to say the least. So that kind of brings us to where we are now. Like, where does the campaign for Prop 1 stand at this moment? And really, what is most needed to get this across the finish line? How can our listeners get involved to help make that happen?
Well, getting the word out to everyone in Olympia is very important. Having those tough discussions with coworkers or friends that might stigmatize someone like me, or judge a working class person who is missing like a tooth, or not understanding how little people that look normal are actually living on. How broke we really are. Understanding that hardworking people are living in their cars, losing everything, and still showing up to work a minimum wage job. It doesn't cover their bills, or let alone food. Most people in these positions are not whiners. They are prideful and strong, and they don't want to talk about this because they know that they will be disrespected and made fun of. It's not fun getting up and telling a bunch of strangers that you and your coworkers are struggling. And it's very serious, and people who don't understand don't want to understand, sometimes on purpose. I used to think that people just didn't understand, but I think a lot of them just don't want to see it. We need to get out there and get the word out and get people to understand.
Yeah, I can't help but thinking of the way the city council was always like, we hear you about stuff, and then just like wouldn't do anything. No. It's like a cliche. But yeah, getting people to see the importance of passing this, getting that word out is extremely important. Kind of on that note, it's worth noting as well that Olympia DSA's endorsed candidates for the Olympia City Council, Robert Vanderpool, who's running for re-election, and Caleb Geiger, who was running to be elected for the first time. They've both been pulling a lot of weight in trying to get Prop 1 passed, and if they're elected, they'll certainly be, let's say, more committed to enforcing it than their opponents in those races would be. Rochelle Martin, who we've endorsed for Tumwater City Council, and who I spoke with previously on the show, has, similar goals for our neighboring city. How do you all see the Prop 1 campaign as kind of fitting into a larger effort to win more power for the working class in local government, getting working class people elected, creating pro-labor majorities like on city councils, county commissions, what have you?
Well, a healthy working class keeps a community strong. When a big employer closes down in a community, the houses get boarded up and the poverty takes over. None of us want that for Olympia, but people need to learn from history and be the change that they want to see. And that includes electing our officials that will actually care about the working class.
Yeah, and I think when you see like how that small but loud group of very like anti-Prop 1 people, they act like this is going to be the end of the world if this gets passed. But I think that's an indication though that like they're scared of the idea that workers would go and win something for themselves, because like every time that happens, it emboldens people further. If it's like, oh, like we got, by our own strength and organizing, got the minimum wage raised, we got like actual working class people on the city councils, like every time something like that happens, it emboldens people further. And I think that's why, even though this is actually, in the big scheme, this is like modest common sense, like reform to the system, they're still like, they're acting like it's a 5-alarm fire, right? I mean, that's kind of the giveaway, right? Progress. Yeah.
Yeah. They're scared of progress and they don't want to share.
Yeah. So kind of related to that, it's my understanding that it actually like a PAC, like a political action committee, was set up for the Prop 1 campaign rather than just, different organizations like dribbling money into it. What are, the advantages of doing something for setting up a PAC for, an effort like this? And is that something that can potentially stay around after this election and help future campaigns?
I love that question. Okay, so first part, what are the advantages? The big advantage is that it really just simplifies public disclosure filings. Instead of every single participating organization having to do all the different filings, it streamlines it so that everybody just publicly discloses that they're contributing to this PAC, and then the PAC files all the rest of the required paperwork. So that's one of the big benefits. It also helps coordinate messaging and campaigning efforts. And then what was the second part of the question? Can it stay around after Initiative 1? And the answer is yes. It can be the funds, the structure of it can be used for future fights also. And so that's something that we've already discussed somewhat. It's obviously not the big focus at this point, but we have talked about it a little bit. And it could be used to spread these protections to Tumwater and Lacey and other municipalities in the area.
I like the sound of that. So thinking ahead, if Prop 1 is passed, that will be a key victory for the working class in Olympia, but of course the struggle will not be over. In your view, how should we potentially follow up from winning passage of Prop 1? What would be a good next step after that?
Implementation of making sure that the businesses and employees are educated on enforcement and looking to improve on issues that may arise, such as how bad actors may try to work around and cheat. It's just the beginning because, as history has shown, greed is always trying to find a way. But we know we need to stay progressive and continue to make it better for the next generation and for surrounding areas. Keep moving out, keep helping other communities.
That's exactly right, Jenny. As we saw with the Tenant Bill of Rights in Tacoma, it's great if these rights are extended to people, but it doesn't mean that much if people don't know that they have the rights. So I think education and implementation is going to be a big focus once Initiative 1 passes. And then after that, like I said, let's spread it to the whole area.
Awesome. Well, this has all been great food for thought. Before we go, let's just recap how listeners can help to get Prop 1 passed. We talked about showing up to that city council meeting on October 7th. I assume there's also a need for money and for people to do volunteer stuff, and of course to vote by November 4th. Anything about donating or volunteering y'all want to add?
Go to holyrising.com. Yep. And there's a get involved page. If you want to go door knocking, where we have door knocking set up for every weekend in October, in addition to some other days. If you want a yard sign, you can sign up on there. We can bring you a yard sign. If you want to get involved in the social media postings, again, you can sign up there. Or if you just want to pledge your support and let us know that you are committed to voting yes in November, whatever level of support you're willing to give us, go there and let us know.
Yeah, you can also add your name to publicly endorse it on the website. Yes, so go to the website, do one or all of those things, or some of them.
And keep having those conversations.
Absolutely.
When somebody asks you how you are, tell them the truth.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta spread the word about this thing.
Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jenny and Colton, so much for talking with us today. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening. We'll look forward to November 4th when Prop 1 passes and we usher in a new phase for Olympia. All right, solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever, y'all.